Hello there, very good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Anthony Baxter. Coming up, a Met police officer has admitted child porn offences and spying on a woman in a South London changing room. The energy crisis hits home as millions move to higher bills under a new gas and electricity cap. We'll hear from the body which represents the energy firms as a minister on a six-figure salary has complained about the cost of living. We'll have an update on the weather for the weekend. It's going to be cold out there, I'm afraid. Plus, well, with the design students getting a preview of the Elizabeth line as station artwork is unveiled. But that's come first, so this evening, a Met police officer has admitted possessing child and extreme pornography and spying on a woman in a South London shop changing room. Our reporter Henry Thomas Aldridge is here. Henry, details of this case coming out during a hearing at Wimbledon Magistrates earlier. Yes, the Metropolitan Police officer in question is facing jail after pleading guilty to voyeurism. PC Swayla Chowdhury, who's 36, admitted to spying on a woman in Southside shopping centre, that is in Wandsworth. He was caught when the victim spotted a mobile phone when she was in the fitting room of Primark in the Southside. Scotland Yard said Chowdhury was off duty at the time of the incident on Wednesday and has been suspended, and he appeared at Wimbledon Magistrates Court today, as you said. The prosecutor said the woman heard rustling in the fitting room next to her. She looked down, she saw the mobile phone. She actually moved to see if it was following her, at which point she screamed and said, "Oh, are you recording me?" Chowdhury said no, and then she alerted her boyfriend, and security detained Chowdhury until the police arrived. Well, during this hearing, he also admitted several other offences, including child pornography and extreme pornography offences. Yes, so after he was arrested in his home, officers searched the property. They found images of children being sexually abused, with infants said to be among the victims. So in court today, Chowdhury pleaded guilty to 3 charges, making indecent images of children, possession of extreme pornography involving animals, and voyeurism, as we spoke about earlier. The prosecutor, Mr. Suleiman Hussain, said electronic devices were investigated at the police officer's home, with 1,000 pictures of children being sexually abused found, with at least 50 said to be in the most serious category. The court heard Chowdhury said the images were downloaded in 2012 and 2014, not 2013, and he wants to seek treatment. Well, Deputy Chief Magistrate Tan Ikram remanded the officer, who is attached to the Met's task force, in custody until sentencing at Kingston Crown Court at a later date. OK, Henry Thomas Aldridge there, details there of our top story. Let's move on. And police community support officer has admitted touching himself inappropriately in a park in East Dulwich. Croydon magistrates heard how 56-year-old Kevin Phillips was wearing his uniform in Dog Kennel Hill Park when a member of public filmed him and then shared the post online. It's since been seen thousands of times. He admitted outraging public decency, blaming his actions on stress and a medical condition. Phillips, who works with the Met's Roads and Transport Unit, will be sentenced at a later date. The first Partygate fines have been issued, according to reports. Junior civil servants who attended a leaving party in the Cabinet Office during the first lockdown are understood to have been given fixed penalty notices worth £50. The names of those involved have not been disclosed. The climate group Extinction Rebellion has announced plans for mass protests in London from next week. The organisation, which has brought parts of the capital to a standstill in recent years, says it will meet from 10 o'clock in the morning in Hyde Park each day from the 9th of April and will carry out mass participation events with the aim of disrupting businesses. It says it will continue until the government makes changes. From today, people taken to A&E in London will be tested for HIV unless they say not to. The new approach is part of the government's zero HIV target to end all new cases by 2030. The Terence Higgins Trust says the opt-out plan is an important step change when it comes to fighting the virus. Now, the cost of living crisis has today hit home as energy bills skyrocketed for millions under new gas and electricity caps. The average household will now have to find at least £700 more a year for energy as council tax and other bills also increase. Experts have warned there could be worse to come when the next cap takes effect in October. Well, wholesale prices have been affected by the war in Ukraine and the ongoing pressure on suppliers. Dara Vyas is from Energy UK, the body which represents energy firms.
It's a really worrying time for customers, and the energy industry is really aware of that. We continue to do everything we can to support customers, and we have been facing global high prices since the end of summer last year. That's in part due to economies opening up after COVID, but a variety of other factors as well. And lately, obviously, the terrible war in Ukraine has exacerbated that and put a lot of pressure on gas prices globally. We do think government can and should be doing more to support people through this. We were warning government before Christmas and before this latest price rise that it would have a huge impact on people, that it was increasingly becoming a cross-economy cost of living crisis, and that people are going to have to make some really difficult choices. I think energy prices being so high is a real concern for lots of people. There's a lot of people who were struggling before, but also people who perhaps were just keeping on top of things who are going to struggle even more. So we've been calling on government to take action and to help and support people.
Now, Sunday will see the London Landmarks Half Marathon take place. Thousands of runners taking to the streets. It is the only event of its kind to go through both the cities of London and Westminster. Many of those taking part doing so in aid of charity, including 17-year-old Jacob Allen, who is running for the Teenage Cancer Trust. Jacob joins us now along with his dad, Stuart. Good to see you. Jacob, let's just talk a little bit about why this charity is important to you. It's something close to your heart, isn't it?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with cancer just over 2 years ago, and during the first few months of my treatment, I stayed at the Teenage Cancer Trust ward in Cardiff.
Something which I can imagine any 15-year-old will be completely, blown away by, something like that. The gravity of that kind of news. How did you deal with it?
It was very difficult. I tried to not
It all went very quickly, so it's quite hard to take in at the time. So I think we were diagnosed on the Thursday and kind of started operation on the Saturday and treatment on the Tuesday. Yeah. And the centre there at Cardiff were really good in kind of explaining everything multiple times. When you can't take it all in at first, but they'd always come back and explain it in a bit more depth later. So we always knew kind of what was going on and why they were doing everything.
Well, Jacob, you're now looking for support in other ways because you've got a big race on this Sunday. Talk us through the process of kind of getting up to fitness to be able to run what is a half marathon.
So my dad bought a treadmill in lockdown because he liked to run quite a bit beforehand. So during treatment, I started walking a bit whilst watching TV just to try and get me moving, so I wasn't just sitting still all day. Then after I finished treatment, I started running on it instead of walking. And then as I built up a distance, I went outside. And then I decided I wanted to run a half marathon to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, Stuart, why aren't you running with him? Come on.
I don't think anyone would give me any charity support if we've got the option of giving it to him. So
it's clear, Jacob, that this charity means an awful lot to you. How much money would you like to get, and why is it that important?
Well, I've already got over £1,000, so it's a lot more than I expected. So I'm quite happy. I only wanted like a few hundred at first, but it's important to me because they helped me a lot. Because it's quite a difficult time, and I want every other young person going through the same time to get the same help as I did and not be left alone.
Indeed. Well, listen, we're delighted that you're in a stage to be able to take part in this race, and we wish you all the very best on Sunday. Jacob will be keeping an eye out for you. Jacob Allen there and Dad Stuart, thanks for joining us. That is the London Landmarks Half Marathon taking place on Sunday. Jacob there running for the Teenage Cancer Trust. Now, for those following the story of Jester, London Zoo's fugitive bird of prey, there's been an update. The crested caracara escaped more than 2 weeks ago from the Regent Park attraction. Lots of sightings of her in South and South West London. The latest position, we're told, Streatham Common. A woman reportedly reportedly saw the bird scavenging for food quite close to where her family were having a picnic. Well, Jester also spotted happily in a tree, apparently feeding on worms yesterday at Mayo Park in Sydenham. There we go, a lovely looking bird, isn't it? Keep your eyes peeled for Jester. Now, another cold night to come. Temperatures down to freezing by first thing on Saturday morning. A bright start for the weekend. Some showers potentially on Saturday afternoon, and it will stay cold into Sunday. Not really a lot of change, perhaps a bit more in the way of cloud. Not quite as cold as we head into the new working week as well, but we could see some rain on Monday. You're watching London Live News with me, Anthony Baxter. Still to come tonight, plans to get boots on the ground in the West End's hospitality sector as customer numbers return, but staffing levels remain well below what they were pre-pandemic. Hello there, welcome back. Let's take a look at one or two other headlines from today. The former Assembly member turned Conservative MP Kit Malthouse says his household is facing a tricky time due to the cost of living. The Crime Minister says his home central heating runs on oil, the price of which hasn't been capped. Well, millions of households are today facing the reality of a 54% rise in the gas and electricity price cap. Council tax, water bills and car tax also going up for some. The government insists it will ban gay conversion therapy in England and Wales. After it emerged it had planned to scrap the legislation, a spokesman last night confirmed that ministers were looking at ways of using existing laws to stop the practice. Well, this led to an immediate backlash from a number of MPs and charities accusing the government of going against its promise. Within hours, a senior source was quoted as saying that the legislation would be part of the next Queen's speech, introducing it to Parliament. More on that to come in just a moment. And we are being told to expect longer than usual queues at airports over the Easter holidays because of staff shortages. The Airport Operators Association, which represents most UK hubs, says its members had been trying to hire for new roles following job losses during the pandemic. It said recruitment issues and COVID-related absences meant operations still under considerable strain. Well, we'll cover one of those stories in a bit more detail now. Let's get John Johnson from Politics Home with us. We're going to take us through what is the week in Westminster. John, we'll speak about the conversion therapy U-turn in a moment. First, though, let's just talk about Partygate, because it was really back with a bang when we got to Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. Give us your analysis of how that went.
Yeah, obviously, we've had the first tranche of Met Police fines released. We haven't had any names on those yet, but we have been told by Downing Street that the Prime Minister is not among them. That doesn't mean he's not going to be fined. It just means he hasn't been fined yet. But you know, as you said at PMQs, this was a big thing that was raised because Boris Johnson had been insistent earlier this year that none of the rules had been broken, that everyone in Downing Street had followed the COVID restrictions, and now very clearly that isn't the case. So Keir Starmer called on him to resign. He did not, obviously, but you know, this is the pressure that's going to come on him. I think because of the Ukraine situation, some of the heat has been taken out of this, but we could see more fines coming, including possibly on the Prime Minister. And as you say, that will just open this whole issue up again.
What has been particularly uncomfortable at times to watch this week has been interviews with ministers who have been forced to kind of clarify the position. And at one point, we had the Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, unable to say whether or not, if somebody is given a fixed penalty notice and they've broken the law, whether they would resign. It's just excruciating, really, isn't it, for the government, all of this?
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, we've had Dominic Raab, the Justice Secretary. We also had another Cabinet Minister, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, coming out and saying that, you know, the rules were clearly broken. Downing Street continue to kind of deny that this is the case. Seems quite a difficult position to hold, but that's what we keep getting told by the Prime Minister's spokesperson. You know, this is going to keep going. We've got the local elections coming up where this could have an impact. And also, once the Met Police investigation is concluded, we then will hopefully get the full publication of the Sue Gray report, the civil servant who was tasked with investigating it. She's very keen for her report to be published in full. And by all accounts, that could be pretty damaging as well.
Yeah, Sue Gray Part 2 is what really everybody is now waiting for, and what the Prime Minister keeps referring to bat away questions. You mentioned the local elections there. Let's just talk about Labour, because they have been one of the first parties really to set out the store when it comes to what they are offering with regards to votes during that ballot in May. What has Sir Keir had to say that Labour will offer?
Well, Labour have really come out swinging on the cost of living crisis. That has been the kind of main plank of the launch of their local elections campaign. You know, coming on the day when everybody's bills are going up, their energy bills are going up, national insurance is going up. That's really been their focus. It's quite a hard one because local councils tend not to have too much discretion on these things. But I think they're really sort of making the point that living standards are dropping. And therefore, you know, they want people to back them in local councils so that they can take whatever steps they can to try and alleviate that.
Yeah, no doubt we will cover all of the parties' manifestos, election promises as we head towards that vote on the 6th of May. Finally, let's touch on what has been a bit of a spat, well, a big spat, which has happened in the last 24 hours. There was a leak to suggest that a promise by the Conservatives wasn't going to be upheld in the Queen's speech. Talk us through the conversion therapy row. What happened?
So this is something the government have been promising for quite a long time. Boris Johnson himself has said that the kind of conversion therapy is abhorrent, and the government had promised to crack down on it. And then suddenly, as you said, we got this leak. ITV reported that the government were kind of quietly planning to shelve it, but there was a massive backlash, including from a number of Conservative MPs who were really, really angry about this. And as seems to be the way that the government functioned at the moment, within hours they had done a U-turn. Although I think kind of key to say is this is only a partial U-turn, and they are not going to ban conversion therapy for trans people, because the government claim that would limit their ability and the NHS and other people's ability to treat children who've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. But again, it's a very difficult situation that the government have put themselves in. And I think a lot of questions about why they have suddenly decided to try and backtrack on this, and have now, taken a blow and been forced to change their minds.
OK, John Johnson there from Politics Home. You can see a lot more of John's work on the Politics Home website. Right, let's just move on. The number of vacancies in the hospitality sector has reached record levels, according to the Office for National Statistics, with those in the industry saying restaurants and bars are struggling more than ever to cope as customers return to pre-pandemic levels. Well, the staff deficit has been put down to Brexit and 2 years of lockdowns and restrictions. Given the West End accounts for 19% of London's employment within the hospitality industry, Westminster Council has now announced a new £1 million initiative to get more boots on the ground. Well, James spoke with Paul Barnes from the New West End Company, which represents 150,000 employees in the capital.
And at the moment, the capacity is almost there to keep things running. But don't forget, there are virtually very few international visitors back to London yet. And when they start coming back, that's what gets the restaurants full, that's what gets the hotels, the bars and such like, and there simply won't be enough staff.
What do you think the solutions are? Because is this a problem that's going to be simply out of the hands of many restaurants and hospitality venues, because it just is simply up to the government to try and find a way to help them fill those gaps? Or are there ways that they can help themselves, or that you can help them?
The first is to address the image of hospitality and leisure as career avenues for people. There is in many places, not everywhere. There's some really good employees throughout the West End, throughout Westminster, but there is a general feel that there's antisocial hours, not particularly high paid, no real potential for career. What we're doing that's slightly different is that at the core of this £1 million campaign, that is an initiative from Westminster City Council, but working with and being delivered by business improvement districts and businesses throughout Westminster. One, we've said we need to have some insights. We need to understand what the issues are. We need to understand what businesses think, what current employees think, and what job seekers think about the industry itself and what are the issues. And in particular, what are the motivators that will get people to come into this industry? What are the barriers that are stopping them coming in? And what are the issues that people really now are thinking about in terms of their life-work balance, which COVID has sort of made people think a lot more about what do I want out of life? How do we grow the employment pool? Because at the moment, the big problem is there's not enough people chasing too many job vacancies. And what we need to say is that employment pool needs to grow. We can't just poach people from different parts of the economy. We've got to grow it. And there are lots of parts of the economy, lots of people in the country who are not currently in employment, but they might wish to be if the right job was there and the right conditions were there. So there are people who are parents, there are people who are carers, people who have retired, there are people who are ex-offenders. There are lots of people who have disabilities, lots of different groups who might be persuaded, if we look at their motivators and we look at the barriers and how we can deal with those, to come back into the employment pool and then also choose hospitality and leisure as their industry of choice. And for the first 100 days, which is from literally today through till mid-July, we're going to be working with businesses, working with all these different groups to understand these issues and come up with a package that says this is a bespoke package for employment in hospitality and leisure in Westminster. Because at the end of the day, if you're working in Westminster, it is qualitatively different from most other parts of the country. If you've had a job and a career in hospitality in, say, the West End, you can work in New York, you can work in Paris, you can work in Hong Kong, you can work in Dubai. This is not just any hospitality job. This is a Westminster hospitality job. And I think that Westminster City Council, I take my hat off to them. They've realised, A, that there is an issue, but B, that Westminster is special and we need to address it.
Gordon Ramsay the other day said with another journalist in an interview that the pandemic was good in some ways in the sense that it cleared out a lot of restaurants in prime locations that were not up to scratch. What do you make of that comment? Do you think that was a little bit offensive to a lot of lovely places that might have gone under and a little bit lacking in research perhaps?
Some of those weaker businesses will go to the wall. If they don't have the strength, if they don't have the cash reserves, they will go to the wall. But this was bigger than that. Those did go to the wall. They went to the wall quite quickly. But when you have 2 years of not being able to trade and you use up all your cash reserves, then lots of businesses that were actually good and strong but just couldn't withstand a closure for nearly 2 years went to the wall. So it is right that some of them were, they won't be lamented in their loss, but there were many good, sound businesses that were lost out. And I feel very sorry for the people who both invested their money in those businesses, but also worked in them.
Details there of some of the staffing issues being faced by the hospitality section. You're watching London Live News with Anthony Baxter. A reminder of the main story coming up after the break. Plus, onto the Elizabeth line we go as the new service prepares to open. We've met the artists behind some of the installations that will greet passengers as they arrive. Hello there. Welcome back. Let's remind you of the main story this evening. A Met police officer has admitted possessing child and extreme pornography and spying on a woman in a South London shop changing room. Our reporter Henry Thomas Aldridge gave us the details a short time ago.
The Metropolitan Police officer in question is facing jail after pleading guilty to voyeurism. PC Swayla Chowdhury, who's 36, admitted to spying on a woman in Southside shopping centre, that is in Wandsworth. He was caught when the victim spotted a mobile phone when she was in the fitting room of Primark in the Southside. Scotland Yard said Chowdhury was off duty at the time of the incident on Wednesday and has been suspended, and he appeared at Wimbledon Magistrates Court today, as you said. The prosecutor said the woman heard rustling in the fitting room next to her. She looked down, she saw the mobile phone. She actually moved to see if it was following her, at which point she screamed and said, "Are you recording me?" Chowdhury said no, and then she alerted her boyfriend, and security detained Chowdhury until the police arrived.
Well, during this hearing, he also admitted several other offences, including child pornography and extreme pornography offences.
Yes, so after he was arrested in his home, officers searched the property. They found images of children being sexually abused, with infants said to be among the victims. So in court today, Chowdhury pleaded guilty to 3 charges, making indecent images of children, possession of extreme pornography involving animals, and voyeurism, as we spoke about earlier. The prosecutor, Mr. Suleiman Hussain, said electronic devices were investigated at the police officer's home, with 1,000 pictures of children being sexually abused found, with at least 50 said to be in the most serious category. The court heard Chowdhury said the images were downloaded in 2012 and 2014, not 2013, and he wants to seek treatment. Well, Deputy Chief Magistrate Tan Ikram remanded the officer, who is attached to the Met's task force, in custody until sentencing at Kingston Crown Court at a later date.
OK, Henry Thomas Aldridge there, details there of our top story. Let's move on. And police community support officer has admitted touching himself inappropriately in a park in East Dulwich. Croydon magistrates heard how 56-year-old Kevin Phillips was wearing his uniform in Dog Kennel Hill Park when a member of public filmed him and then shared the post online. It's since been seen thousands of times. He admitted outraging public decency, blaming his actions on stress and a medical condition. Phillips, who works with the Met's Roads and Transport Unit, will be sentenced at a later date. The first Partygate fines have been issued, according to reports. Junior civil servants who attended a leaving party in the Cabinet Office during the first lockdown are understood to have been given fixed penalty notices worth £50. The names of those involved have not been disclosed. The climate group Extinction Rebellion has announced plans for mass protests in London from next week. The organisation, which has brought parts of the capital to a standstill in recent years, says it will meet from 10 o'clock in the morning in Hyde Park each day from the 9th of April and will carry out mass participation events with the aim of disrupting businesses. It says it will continue until the government makes changes. From today, people taken to A&E in London will be tested for HIV unless they say not to. The new approach is part of the government's zero HIV target to end all new cases by 2030. The Terence Higgins Trust says the opt-out plan is an important step change when it comes to fighting the virus. Now, for those following the story of Jester, London Zoo's fugitive bird of prey, there's been an update. The crested caracara escaped more than 2 weeks ago from the Regent Park attraction. Lots of sightings of her in South and South West London. The latest position, we're told, Streatham Common. A woman reportedly saw the bird scavenging for food quite close to where her family were having a picnic. Well, Jester also spotted happily in a tree, apparently feeding on worms, yesterday at Mayo Park in Sydenham. Now, this week, some sixth formers were the latest people to get a sneak preview of the Elizabeth line. They also got to see what will greet passengers as we enter Farringdon Station. As part of the Crossrail Art programme, new installations will go up in the 7 major London stations. Farringdon will play host to the British artist Simon Perroton, who led the art and design and technology pupils through the station. Well, we sent Henry down to speak to those involved and check out the new platforms.
I think it's really amazing and important that Crossrail and now the Elizabeth line has made this commitment to placing art at the centre of these stations. Art has a huge effect on how we feel as we travel through stations, how we feel in spaces, how we connect as a community. And I think many people will be familiar with TfL's history of commissioning art, which goes back to the early 20th century. And this is just such a wonderful legacy that we're committing to major art projects in these really huge new infrastructure projects. And as I say, having them in the 7 central London stations is just a really great opportunity for people who might not often go to a gallery to still experience really great works by leading contemporary artists. Simon was chosen with the support of his gallery, Sadie Coles, and I think he was chosen because he had a really good understanding of the local area and of how he could bring the form of practice that he does to these spaces, how he could link in with local community in a really beautiful, insightful, meaningful way.
There's a whole kind of concourse, cascading artwork that's in this Western ticket hall. The Eastern ticket hall is at the other end of the platform, which is a very long platform. That's part of a kind of cultural connection, an attempt to kind of draw the Barbican Art Centre kind of west a bit, and forge links with what's going to be a slightly new cultural quarter in Smithfield Market. I mean, it's always great to talk to young students. They usually give you more ideas than you give them, I find. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, they're different. Some of them are art students, and some of them were design and technology students. So in a way, this project is perfect for that because it is a kind of perfect combination of engineering, feats and artwork. So hopefully there was something that they all got. Having to reassess how the work is going to be viewed, particularly in relation to how one might normally make a bit of work for a gallery. If you're lucky, you might sit in front of a painting in a gallery for 2, 3, 4 hours if you're really lucky. A project like this and an artwork like this is designed to be glimpsed through the legs and bags and coats of thousands of commuters every day. Some people will only see it once and they might see the whole thing as they walk through the concourse. Other people may only see it in a fragment of it in the morning rush hour and then again in the evening rush hour, for instance. But they might see it, do that journey for 15 years. Somebody did say something very scary to me at one point when I was doing some sort of talk about the project. And I think it was another student at the time said that, how did I feel about the idea of my work being viewed by people who haven't been born yet? And that was quite a scary idea. So I think in a way, I mean, all artists make work that hopefully has some kind of longevity and resonance with future generations, but I think you try not to think about it too carefully because otherwise it might actually scare you into not doing anything. And when I found out that I got it, it took ages because I think originally I was asked to suggest something like nearly 10 years ago, and then I kind of started that process, started to do some research, and then the project seemed to disappear. And then I wasn't sure if it was actually ever going to happen. And then another 5 years later or something, it suddenly popped up again. It's been very interesting to see it over the years. It's changed quite a bit. When I first came to the site, it was just a big muddy cave as a whole with concrete sprayed on it. And gradually I've sort of, the station has kind of built up around the whole idea. So the artwork, in a way, existed before the station for me. So it's kind of odd to see it kind of now with the station all around it because I know the artwork so well.
I think that's really what Crossrail exemplifies. It's an engineering challenge, it's a design, and it's art. And of course, for many people, they might focus on the engineering, the signalling, the hardware, but for me, I just feel so strongly the value of great art and design in these new spaces. They really make people feel respected, cared for. They're absolutely the heart of what London stations look like. And I'm just really proud that the commitment has been made to art in these stations.
Do you know roughly when the Crossrail will open?
Well, I know it will open in the first half of 2022, and it's all on progress. So hopefully really, really soon.
There we go. That's what it will look like once we finally get inside Farringdon's Crossrail Elizabeth Line station. You're watching London Live News, still to come before 7. American rock legend Suzi Quatro will be with us. Suzi set to step out at the Royal Albert Hall to celebrate 58 years in the music industry. Hello there, welcome back. Now, to see us into the weekend this evening, we've got a special interview with one of the world's greatest ever female rockers. The Detroit-born Suzi Quatro is regarded as a pioneer in her genre, seen as the first ever woman to don a guitar that was also twice her size and fronts a rock band here in 1970s London. Well, now 71, she's performing a special gig at the Royal Albert Hall to celebrate her career spanning 58 years and counting. Well, Suzi spoke with James in depth about her life in rock and roll and the upcoming show.
My 70th birthday last year, I'm now 71. It's the right time to do the gig. I've never played there before, been there many times, but it feels right. It's going to be a 2-hour-long solo show with an interval and a celebration of my entire career.
Yeah.
So it's been a long career.
Well, let's go back to the start then. You started out with your sisters in a band in Detroit, and then suddenly you were singled out as the potential star, and then you had to move to England in what, 1971 is it? When you were perhaps 20 or 21? That must have been a pretty scary moment for you, but it kind of set the course for incredible career.
It was, it's a double-edged sword because I was always waiting for that moment. I don't lie about it. You know yourself when you got that little, whatever that is, whatever they want to call it. So I was always waiting to be discovered. Then I was, but then you sort of business-wise, no brainer, go. Because Mickey Most was offering me the chance of a lifetime. And the other side is that, oh my God, I'm leaving everybody. I'm leaving my home, my family, everything. And that's the sad part. But when the opportunity knocks, you better answer the door.
But then from there, you've become sort of an icon in the industry. You're kind of the first rock front woman, so to speak, because the rock industry was so heavily dominated by front men up until then. And then you kind of set the course for what could be, the Debbie Harrys of this world and everyone else that's followed through. Do you look at bands now like Wolf Alice, for example, and people like that and go, well, I was the first one holding a big guitar at the front?
History is history and you can't change timeline. And I was the first one. I actually didn't have a blueprint. There wasn't anybody around that I could say, oh, I'd like to be like her. And I don't do gender anyway, but all you need to do is watch Suzi Q, the documentary that came out in 2019, to see how all these girls, and it brought me to tears, I have to admit, when I watched the premiere in London, it brought me to tears. All these women saying if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be doing it. And that wasn't my agenda. I didn't have an agenda because I was just being who I am. But what it humbled me, to know that I changed so many women's lives. And it's just great. It's great. Yeah, I'm very proud of that. I'll take that to my grave.
Yeah.
She has transcended her gender. She is now just considered an icon.
A lot of girls that tried to be Suzi Quatro, but when it's in the DNA, you can't fake that.
Certainly her position in being like the first woman leading a band, having hits like that.
This woman has so much energy, so much talent. She could have done anything.
I was going to ask, what is the thing that you're perhaps most proud of in your career?
I always say this, and it makes people kind of chuckle, but my dream was to be worldwide known. I don't like the word famous. I don't know why. It doesn't sit with me. Worldwide known, and to remain normal, feet on the ground. And I've pretty much done that. And I think probably getting honorary doctor at Cambridge University in October 2016. I'm officially Dr. Quatro. Now that amazed me. I know, it's crazy. It amazed me because, first of all, I didn't even graduate high school, So I was humbled by that. I was up there making that speech and looking out at all these academics and thinking, how did I get here? It's great. Yeah. What an honor. I can use it in my passport, Dr. Quatro.
Many people get very famous and are very well known, but to last 58 years and still be in your 70s, if you don't mind me saying?
Explain the longevity of your career.
Well, just my humble opinion, but I think that when you are in it because you genuinely love what you do, you know, it's not manufactured, it's you. And I go up there and I announce my age and I'm proud of it. I like to think that's the reason why I've lasted, because when I go on that stage, I give my all. When I make an album, I give my all. Whatever I do, I give my all. If I ever find myself standing on a stage with a phony smile plastered on my face, I'll go. Never happened. But I think that is the longevity thing. When you put your heart and soul into it, you know, I mean, you don't go in this business for the money. Well, I did anyway. You know, if you make it, that's great. But I went in it because I believe I was put on this earth to entertain, communicate, and create. Yeah. That's the three words that describe me.
And how much longer do you see yourself wanting to keep performing on these big stages when you look at the Mick Jaggers of this world and the people like, you know, the Who still going strong at their age? Do you see yourself going right into perhaps your 80s?
Well, I've got to last as long as all these people you just mentioned have lasted. And they're a good 8-9 years older than me. You know, attitude, when you spend your entire lifetime learning your craft and perfecting your craft, why all of a sudden there's some invisible marker that says, oh, time up. Why? Why? You know, look at Mick Jagger. That's a good example. You know, he's out there strutting his stuff. How old is he? Is he 79? So, I mean, I've got at least 9 years before I have to even think about it.
Tell us a story, one of your favorite stories from your history in the music industry.
Oh my God, I'll tell you which one just popped to mind, and I don't know why, but it did. The first band, there was a record producer came to see us in New York City, and we ended up having a conversation after the show. He really liked me, you know, thought I was the talent, blah, blah, blah. So we're talking, and obviously I've got my best foot forward trying to impress him in conversation. Okay, so he said to me, you know, you're real good, you're real good. I tell you what, he said, if you're really serious about this, what you're doing up there, all that singing and all that stuff, he said, you have to get some Billie Holiday albums. To which I replied, I have all of his stuff. It's that classic, how to feel like a total idiot. I've since become a great fan, and nothing was said. I wonder what he must have thought.
Yeah.
I always say my character is that I only open my mouth to change feet.
Well, Susie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for talking with us, and I wish you all the best. And we look forward to having you in London when you get it.
Yo. Oh, shall I do my thing? Okay, the April 20th, the Queen of Rock and Roll is playing the Royal Albert Hall, and this will become this. I can do that. I'm American.
Suzi Quatro there with James. She will be at the Royal Albert Hall on the 20th of April. A final check on the weather for you tonight. Staying cold out there, I'm afraid. Temperatures down to around freezing by first thing on Saturday. A nice bright start for the weekend. Some showers potentially tomorrow afternoon, and then staying cold into Sunday. Not a great deal of change really, perhaps a little bit more in the way of cloud. Not as cold though as we head into the new working week, but there will be some rain to come on Monday. That's all from the news team at 6. Thanks for watching. James back with you tomorrow morning for London's Weekend. Look at all the things you can get up to in the capital tomorrow and Sunday. That is at 6 a.m. from me. Have a lovely weekend.